Hey guys, it is April from Getting Hugo with It. Today I wanted to share with you the books that I'm really hoping to read this spring. This is my spring TBR. I've got 6 books that I want to share with you that I'm personally really excited about. Some of them are new releases and others are books that have been on my TBR for a very long time. So if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, please do. I would love to spend more time with you. And if you have subscribed, thank you so much for subscribing. I really appreciate it. I love hanging out with you guys. So let's talk about what I want to read this spring. So the first book that I have on my spring TBR is actually a book that I had on my spring TBR last year. It never went down. I wish it had because it's still a book that I'm so drawn to. And that is Sweet Francaise by Irene Nemirovsky. Now, Irene, or maybe her name is Irene, she lived in France during World War II. She was a very successful writer that lived in Paris. And she sadly died during World War II. But first she wrote this book. And I'm so compelled to read this. I desperately want to read this book. I think I might actually listen to it on audiobook. But this is the story of people in France, essentially the lives of men and women during this tumultuous time when the Germans were invading France. Who would understand this better than someone who was experiencing this herself and ended up dying under these circumstances? So out of all of these books, I think this is the book that I most want to read this spring. The next book I'd really love to read this spring is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Apparently this is a very different kind of book for Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I've only heard good things about this. I think this has done really well on Goodreads and has like 4 stars and above. And this is about a Hollywood movie icon named Evelyn Hugo, and she divulges about her life to this writer. So I believe this follows her acting career and her love life from the 50s to the 80s in Hollywood. It sounds wonderful. I'm really eager to read this. So this is going down this spring. This next book I was kindly sent from Penguin Random House Canada. I desperately wanted an ARC of this book, and it's Unbury Carol by Josh Malerman. Now Josh Malerman wrote Bird Box, which is still my all-time favorite horror book. It's just so creepy, and I could not put that book down. I was just so horrified by that book. This is his latest, and it's kind of a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. So we follow a woman named Carol, and she never is able to die. What I mean by that is that she comes back from the dead, so she never fully dies. One of her husbands decides that he wants to take her money, and so he, the next time that she dies, he decides to bury her. And she wakes up essentially in a grave, in a casket. She's underground, and she needs to somehow find her way out. And she's never gonna die, so can you imagine a life like that? Forever? I don't know. I'm nervous just thinking about this book. I am so excited that I got my hands on this copy. This book is coming out on April 10th, and I mean, it's Josh Malerman. He can do no wrong. So definitely getting to this one. I also really love to read Kate Morton during the spring. There is something about the spring that screams Kate Morton to me, and so I'm going to finally read The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. This is most people's favorite Kate Morton book. I feel like everyone that I talk to who loves Kate Morton tends to talk about this book in particular. This is about a little girl who's abandoned on a ship in 1913. The ship is headed to Australia, and she is suddenly an orphan. She's taken in by a dockmaster and his wife, and they raise her as their own. And then she starts to have questions about where she came from, why she was abandoned, and her storyline. And so on her 21st birthday, she heads to the Cornish coast to find out what happened to her family, her biological family. It sounds wonderful, and I am so eager to have Kate Morton back in my life again. So yes, that's The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. Another book that I requested, this time from HarperCollins Canada, is The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. Now, Paul Tremblay wrote A Head Full of Ghosts, which is a horror novel that is super creepy about possession, and I really loved that book. And I just know that I'm going to love this. This one comes out in June. This is about a little girl named Wen. She is playing outside, and then this man comes up to her and he's talking to her, and he seems relatively pleasant, and so she's talking to him, and he says to her, "What's about to happen isn't your fault." And he starts moving towards her home, and she runs inside to tell her parents, Eric and Andrew, and suddenly this man who's outside is accompanied by several other people, and they shout out to her, "Your dads won't want to let us in, Wen, but they have to. We need your help to save the world." And I don't know if they're all kidnapped and are being held hostage in this house or what happens. It just sounds absolutely petrifying to me, so I'm very, very eager to read The Cabin at the End of the World. Finally, I've got another World War II fiction book that I've been really wanting to read for a very long time, and it is Everyone Brave is Forgiven by Chris Cleave. Now, Chris Cleave based this story on some letters he found between his grandparents, who apparently had lived through World War II. I believe we follow 3 or 4 individuals. I don't know how many of them end up serving in the war. Apparently, like a very real account of how the war was for just citizens, everyday citizens, and what it felt like. I'm so excited to read this. I always love a little World War II fiction in the spring. I don't know what that's about, but I really do. So yeah, those are the books that I'm planning on reading this spring. You know me, I mean, one of them was in my spring TBR last year and didn't get read. So this is kind of a loose TBR, but I am really hoping to get to all of those. They all are jumping out at me on my shelves, and yes. What books do you guys like to read in the spring? Do you have any kinds of books in particular that call out to you? I don't know, I'm a bit of a seasonal reader, and I don't know if I'm alone in that. I hope that you guys are doing well, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye guys!